Hello, everybody. This is Kyle Speed One coming to you not from the racetrack again. Well, you know that old saying, third time's the charm, right? Well, no, it's not. Yes, you see before you a third Le Mans Miniatures slot car. And this has been an adventure with them. Ta-da! You got a Aston Martin DBR1, number 5, raced by Carroll Shelby. Okay? Well, just like Dodge, Chrysler, and Plymouth, they had 3 strikes with me, and I'll never own another product from that car company. And this also applies, unfortunately, to Le Mans Miniatures. Okay? Now, again, I reiterate, yeah, beautiful presentation. All that looks good. It's got the little badge over there and all that good stuff. Box is in great condition. This is like the other two, was brand spanking new. Now, this ain't the fault of the guy that sold me these 3 cars. No, this is a manufacturer's problem, okay? And they have a problem. Now, I'm not going to be able to do this one-handed, am I? There we go. I doed it. All right. Wow. See what I'm talking about? Bits and pieces falling out? Okay. So, the body. Again, wonderful detail. Great paint job. Wonderful detail. Okay. I'll give them credit where credit's due. I don't hate everything about them, but I will tell you real quick, I do not care for their attention to the chassis. What happened, Kyle? Well, let's see. You know, the 2 screws that go through the chassis into the body, they're fine, with the exception that with the body assembled to the chassis, the front tires were rubbing in that area. Okay? So what I had to do is I had to take some cardstock. Put a hole through it. And I had to have 2 of them because you got to make things even, right? I had to shim it up with this cardstock so that, I don't know what that is, probably snuff. Had to shim so that the body would lift up just enough to where those front wheels would stop rubbing on the body. Okay? Well, that was the first thing I noticed. Now, I'm going to say this, and I hope those that are new to slot carring, the hobby of slot cars, will take this advice. Every time you purchase a slot car, you need to do several things. Look at the overall condition of the car when you receive it, and then look at, well, there's just all kinds of stuff on it. You need to fluff out your braids on your guide so you'll have a wider contact path. Then you carefully need, while this is assembled to the body, you need to go along and check the fitment of the front axle. Okay. And you're going to come across basically what equates to two different ways of doing the front axle. Now, you notice that this is a front motor car, okay? And there's a lot of flies that are built the same way. And in some instances, because of the motor fitment and because of the guide fitment, you can't get an axle through there. It won't clear. So what they do is they create these little stubby axles that attach your wheels to. And what you'll find is they flop around quite a bit after a period of runs. Okay. And yeah, that for whatever reasons, as a mechanic, that annoys the heck out of me. So usually what I'll do is I'll grab another axle, or I've even grabbed brass tubing that is of the right size to enter into the hubs of the wheels, cut it to length, and assemble it into the car until it fits the way it's supposed to, because of those stubby axles. In some cases, you won't be able to do that, and you just have to live with those stubby axles. All right. So then as I'm checking the car, I come back here, and I can't really show you this. Maybe I can one-handed. Holding this wheel the best you can, if you're doing it one-handed, try to move, see if the wheels will slip on the shaft. Okay? See if they'll slip. If they do, you need to go back with your Allen wrench and tighten them up a little bit. Now be careful, because these grub screws, you can strip out the hex inside of them real quick. And in this case of this car, both wheels were slipping on the shaft. I could literally hang on to this crown gear, and I could spin either wheel on the shaft. Okay, on the axle shaft. Okay. Well, okay. I thought everything was fine and right with the world. However, when I ran it for about 3 or 4 laps on the track, I heard something spinning, and I was like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. So I take the car back apart, and I'm checking everything, from the motor attachment. You can see that it's got that spring fitting on the motor. And then you have this extension shaft, which in this case, it's kind of weird. It's not the same size as the motor shaft. It's been reduced in size for whatever reasons, going through a bushing, and then the pinion gear, right? Okay. Normal setup, so to speak. However, after checking the car out, come to find out, this pinion would slip from time to time on that shaft, and the car would just scream, but it wouldn't move. Okay, it wouldn't move because that pinion was slipping on its shaft. So what do? Well, as the old saying goes, there's more than one way of skinning a cat, so to speak. And in this case, it seems to be working perfectly fine. However, the more I run this thing, the more I realize that it could give up the ghost any second. So what I did was I took Loctite, I think it's 275 red, the high strength, high temp Loctite, and I slipped the pinion off of this shaft, and of course I slid the pilot bearing down so we wouldn't have any contact with what I was doing with the pinion. And then what I did was I slipped the pinion off and I cleaned off the shaft with some alcohol. Then I came back with the 275 Loctite and I put a dab at the front of the shaft and I put a dab about midway length that pinion goes. So that way, as I'm sliding the pinion back onto the shaft, I'm not only picking up what was at the front of the shaft, but I'm also picking up through all the micro air gaps the Loctite 275 that I put about midway down. Okay. And then I slid that in place and made sure the fitment was right. As you can see, the gear mesh with that dark streak across there. Okay. See, it's not the light. That's actually showing you the teeth position between the crown gear and the pinion. And so I let that dry for a day. Loctite, if you don't have an experience with it, Loctite works best when you take the air away. It's exposed to air, and usually in 30 minutes, it's pretty much locked in and good to go. However, I let that dry for a complete day and then reassembled the motor, the bushing, the pilot bushing into the car. Now, after I had all that done, along with the shims for the body, okay, raising the body up so the front end wouldn't contact the bottom of the body where you see that white at. It's almost like they knew. Because for whatever reasons, this thing doesn't have lights, but for whatever reasons, they painted that body black on the inside and left those white patches. And that's exactly where those wheels were touching. And they were a little bit too long. The axle was a little bit too long. So I had to cut off about 1/8 of an inch from this axle and then refit the hub, the wheel hub back on there and then put the tire back on. And now the car runs absolutely beautiful around my track. However, as I said before, I usually give about 3 tries with a product, and some would call that hard-headedness, and I would understand if you did so. But the thing that I admire about Le Mans Miniatures, if anything, is the amount of detail they put into their cars. Okay, that's a really nice selling point. So my advice to anybody considering purchasing, and some people, it's kind of like potluck. You never know whether or not a product was built on a Monday morning with somebody trying to work through a hangover, or a Friday where they're so excited to be done with that week that they can't wait to get out away from work. So you never know. I wish in some ways slot cars had a made on such and such day mark on them. So you would know in advance, no, I don't want a Monday slot car. I want a Friday slot car. I don't want a Monday or a Friday. Let me rephrase that. I don't want a Monday or a Friday slot car. Give me a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday slot car. Anytime people are involved, there's going to be, it can be mistakes made. And that's because, well, we're human. We make mistakes. You either have a choice of sending the car back, which means you have to pay postage, and explain your complaints to the person that you bought it from, and try to get a refund or get a replacement car. Okay? Now, it's within my nature to just try to make the best out of a bad situation. So a lot of times what I do, and I've never sent a car back, I've just corrected the problems within the car and moved on. You know, sometimes it's extensive, sometimes it's easy peasy lemon squeezy, you know. But that's my nature, you know, just make a bad situation into lemonade, as it were. So if you're new to slot cars, with the cost of these cars, as I reiterated before about the Bugatti and the Ferrari, you're taking a chance. I will say that. You are taking a chance with Le Mans Miniatures on their quality control with some things. And it seems to be always the running gear with Le Mans Miniatures. I haven't found a fault or a defect in their body or their paint or their detailing. It's always been in the chassis. So, that being said, there are plenty of other manufacturers out there if you're just beginning. Scalextric, Carrera, those are probably the best known for better reliability and long time use. A lot of people won't even run these Le Mans Miniatures, and I'm like, I'm not going to pay that kind of money and not run that car on my track. And like I said before, I'm not going to beat and bang the dang thing up. I'm going to take care of it and treat it right because of the price that I paid for that car. Now, if you're wanting to graduate, so to speak, from Carrera and Scalextric, they're kind of like the Model T Ford of slot cars, so to speak. They have, in their own ways, have had their own quality control problems. And if you look at some of the other videos, some of the guys have brought up those problems. But as a whole, I have not run across a bad Carrera, and I've not run across a bad Scalextric, okay? But if you're wanting to graduate to slightly more technical cars and, you know, that have a good fit and finish and a good quality control to them, I recommend, and this is just me, I recommend Slot It or even NSR